So good morning and welcome to Bible study for Wednesday, December 2nd. We are beginning our journey into Numbers. Now, we started reading the Bible back in Genesis and we've been journeying our way through, and today we're in Numbers. Numbers is one of the books of the Pentateuch. It's book 4 that is said to be authored by Moses. And Numbers, you can't really talk about in isolation. So Numbers has built upon everything that's come before, and it will continue to build on everything that's going to come after. Deuteronomy is going to build on Numbers. So they are on a journey through the wilderness. They've spent, Exodus taught us about leaving Egypt. Leviticus taught us about how the priests were to order worship. And Numbers, surprise, surprise, is going to talk about a lot of numbers. They are conducting a census to see how many people are in the community. They've been on a long journey and a generation is changing, and so they're keeping track of the numbers. But you also can talk about this book as being a biography or an autobiography of Moses. It talks about Moses, and the themes that we're seeing is that the Lord is fulfilling the promises along the way and taking care of God's people. All right, so here we are in Moses, and we're reading from the New Living Translation, and it's the registration of Israel's troops. So a year has passed since Israel departed Egypt, and the Lord spoke to Moses in the tabernacle in the wilderness of Sinai. So the tabernacle was the tent of meeting that they constructed with all of those poles and canvases and gold curtains, all of those things. The tabernacle has been built, and Moses has consecrated it with Aaron and the priests, and now they're in it. On the first day of the second month of that year, he said, "From the whole community of Israel, record the names of all the warriors by their clans and their families. List all the men 20 years old or older who are able to go to war. You and Aaron must register the troops, and you will be assisted by one family leader from each tribe." Imagine how comforting this is. Here we are. We've journeyed through the desert and the wilderness. We've nearly run out of food and water at times, and we've relied on God to meet our needs, except they grumbled about it the whole way. And now God is saying, okay, take account of how many people you have to fight for you. So they are preparing for battle, and God's letting them know that. And so these are the tribes and the names of the leaders who will assist you. We have Reuben, Simeon, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Ephraim, Manasseh, Benjamin, Dan, Asher, Gad, and Naphtali. Now, you go, wait, weren't there 12 tribes of Egypt? Why do we have more than 12 names? Ephraim and Manasseh are a half tribe. They're the two sons of Joseph, and they sort of split that tribe. And they have the various sons' names listed. These are the chosen leaders of the community, of the leaders of their ancestral tribes, the heads of the clan of Israel. So Moses and Aaron called together these chosen leaders, and they assembled the whole community of Israel on that very day. All the people were registered according to their ancestry by their clans and families. The men of Israel who were 20 years or older were listed one by one, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. So Moses recorded their names in the wilderness of Sinai. This is the number of men 20 years or older who were able to go to war, as their names were listed in the record of their clans and families. So this list of the records and clans and families is going to be repeated several times. They talk about the list of the whole families. We don't have that extant list. We just have this condensed list. So the tribe of Reuben, which was Jacob's oldest son, was 46,500. Simeon was 59,300, Gad 45,650, Judah 74,600, Issachar 54,400, Zebulun 57,400, Ephraim, son of Joseph, 40,500, Manasseh, son of Joseph, 32,200, Benjamin, 35,400, Dan, 62,700, Asher, 41,500, and Naphtali, 53,400. That's a lot of people. And think about it. These are just the men who are 20 years of age or older who are capable of fighting. So all of these men have families and other people around them. These were the men registered by Moses and Aaron and the 12 leaders of Israel, all listed according to their ancestral descent. They were registered by families, all the men of Israel who were 20 years or older and able to go to war, and the total number was 603,550. But this total did not include the Levites. For the Lord had said to Moses, "Do not include the tribe of Levi in the registration. Do not count them with the rest of the Israelites. Put the Levites in charge of the tabernacle of the covenant, along with all its furnishings and equipments. They must carry the tabernacle and all its furnishings while you travel, and they may take care of it and camp around it." Which makes sense. If they are the beasts of burden, as it were, carrying all of the holy hardware and the tent itself, they're not free to just drop what they have and fight. And also think about what all of these tent of meeting things are made of. Remember, many of these have filigree of gold thread. They are cast in bronze or gold. These are the most valuable things that the Israelites have. And so the Levites are charged specifically with protecting those things. And then the other Israelites were to protect them. They must carry it and camp around it. Whenever it is time for the tabernacle to move, the Levites will take it down, and when it is time to stop, they will set it up again. But any unauthorized person who goes too near the tabernacle must be put to death. So remember, we've talked about harsh punishments before, and the idea that certain things are an immediate death sentence. Two of Aaron's sons, the Korah, they flung their incense and fire just exactly how they wanted to do it and not how God asked them, and they were killed. Now God is saying, if anyone approaches the tent of the meeting, the tabernacle, and they're not supposed to, they're killed. Holiness is this idea that things set apart for God are completely set apart and holy by their very nature. And so in order to prevent those from being defiled, or from the people who are seeking to defile them from thinking that's okay, this harsh penalty is instituted. Each tribe of Israel will camp around the tabernacle of the covenant to protect the community of Israel from the Lord's anger. The Levites are responsible to stand guard around the tabernacle. So as Christians, we don't like to think about an angry God. We like to think of God as loving and kind and merciful. And God is. Now remember, God is giving all these rules and regulations, but God puts up with the Israelites not following them for decades. For decades, they go off and they seek other gods and other people. And then God finally allows the consequences to be visited upon the people. But God is very patient and slow to anger. But we would be remiss if we didn't discuss that, yes, God has anger. God gets angry. God gets angry at injustice. God gets angry when the people don't follow. And God will eventually allow consequences for his people. So the Israelites do what the Lord has commanded. Good morning.
I'm so sorry I'm late. I'm here.
Okay, I'm glad to hear your voice. And we're in Numbers chapter 2.
Yes, thank you.
And we've just gotten through the census. So
Okay.
we've had figured out that they have 603,000 fighting men and soldiers, and now we're organizing the camp.
Okay.
The Lord gave these instructions to Moses and Aaron. When the Israelites set up camp, each tribe will be assigned its own area. The tribal divisions will camp beneath their family banners on all four sides of the tabernacle, but at some distance from it. Remember, we've just got done saying that the penalty for getting close and approaching the tabernacle when you're not permitted is death. So God's like, it might be a good idea to have a buffer zone and have people a little bit at a distance. Again, this makes it so that if people are approaching the tent, it's with intention. There's no excuse of accidentally wandering the wrong direction. The camp is very clearly laid out, and everyone should know. So the divisions of Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun are to camp towards the sunrise on the east side of the tabernacle beneath their family banners. And these are the names of the tribes and the numbers of their registered troops. Judah had 74,600, Issachar 54,400, Zebulun 57,400. So the total of all the troops on Judah's side of the camp is 186,400. These are the three tribes that are to lead the way whenever the Israelites travel to a new campsite. So you're going to notice that this is the largest number, as makes sense. The bulk of the troops are out in front, clearing the path and providing safe passage for the Israelites. Because while they've been on a fairly peaceful journey through the wilderness, from here on out, they are coming closer to an already inhabited land and the Canaanites and other tribes that are not going to take kindly to a massive, 1 million people just coming and saying, we're here now, this is ours. So this is the reason why the fighting men are organized before they begin to go into already controlled territory. So the divisions of Reuben, Simeon, and Gad are to camp on the south side of the tabernacle beneath their family banners. These are the names of the tribes, the leaders, and the number of registered troops. We have Reuben, which is led by Elizur, son of Shadur, at 46,500. Simeon, which is led by Shelumiel, son of Zurishaddai, 59,300, and the tribe of Gad, led by Eliasaph, son of Deuel, 45,650 people. So on the south side of the camp, you got 151,450 people, and these are the three tribes that will be second in line whenever the Israelites travel. So we had the north side is out in front, the south side when they're camped, but then they come and fall in right behind the north side when they're marching. And then the tabernacles carried by the Levites will set out from the middle of the camp, and all the tribes are to travel in the same order that they camp, each in position under the appropriate family banner. The divisions of Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin are to camp on the west side of the tabernacle beneath their family banners. And these are the names of their tribes, their leaders, the numbers of their registered troops. So we have Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin, which are led by Elishama, son of Ammihud, Gamaliel, son of Pedahazur, and Abidan, son of Gideoni. And they've got 40,500, 32,200, 35,400. So the total of all the troops on Ephraim's side of the camp is 108,100. And these are the tribes that will be third in line whenever the Israelites travel. The divisions of Dan, Asher, and Naphtali are to camp on the north side of the tabernacle beneath their family banners. And these are the names of the tribes, their leaders, and the numbers of their registered troops. Dan, Asher, and Naphtali are led by Ahiezer, son of Ammishaddai, Pagiel, son of Achran, Ahira, son of Anan, and they have 62,700, 41,500, 53,400. So the total of all the troops on Dan's side of the camp is 157,600. And these three tribes will be last, marching under their banners whenever the Israelites travel. So that was a lot of numbers and a lot of names. And what is important for us to remember as Christians who are reading this millennia later, the idea is that God cared for these people very much, and God organized them and helped them to make a plan and to be sensible about how they were to divide the labor of protecting the tabernacle and marching forward into the promised land. So all of the troops of Israel listed by their families totaled 603,550. But as the Lord had commanded, the Levites were not included in this registration because they're busy taking care of the tabernacle. So the people of Israel did everything the Lord had commanded Moses. Each clan and family set up camp and marched under their banners exactly as the Lord had instructed them. So here we have a moment. There's before this moment and after this moment. So Moses has been up on Mount Sinai communicating with God, and they've traveled forth a little ways, and now Moses is in the tabernacle communicating with God, and God's like, all right, as you're going forward, you need to be more organized and not let just things happen and just have people argue over where am I supposed to be? No, this is our spot. This is our spot. No. Israel has done a lot of squabbling, as any of you have gone on a road trip can attest. The more people you have in the vehicle, the more needs that need to be met and different bodily schedules and all kinds of time for chaos and confusion, and people get tired and cranky and hungry and thirsty. So God's saying, hey, let's do this a little more organized. And so now we're going to talk specifically about the Levites in chapter 3. Now, this is kind of funny. We've just spent an entire book of the Old Testament talking about the Levites and how they are to lead. And so those of you who've been going with me in progression are going, why are we talking about them again? Didn't we just hear all of their rules? Yes. But remember, when these were written, these were not set up in a book with chapter headings and titles and bound together and page form. These are new decrees reissued periodically for people who haven't heard them recently, because you would have this read to the community so that they would know what was going on, what to expect, and how to prepare for it. And so remember, they're about to go into occupied territory for somewhat the first time, and God's getting them ready. So this is the family line of Aaron and Moses, as it is recorded when the Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai. The names of Aaron's sons were Nadab, the oldest, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. The sons of Aaron were anointed and ordained to minister as priests. But Nadab and Abihu died in the Lord's presence in the wilderness at Sinai when they burned before the Lord the wrong kind of fire, different than he had commanded. Now, this is not they put the wrong incense in the censer. This is they decided that they wanted to burn incense that day, even when that was not what God had asked of them. And so, since they had no sons, this left only Eleazar and Ithamar to serve as priests with their father Aaron. Then the Lord said to Moses, call forward the tribe of Levi and present them to Aaron the priest to serve as his assistants. They will serve Aaron and the whole community, performing their sacred duties in and around the tabernacle. They will also maintain all the furnishings of the sacred tent, serving in the tabernacle on behalf of the Israelites. Assign the Levites to Aaron and his sons. They have been given from among all the people of Israel to serve as their assistants. Appoint Aaron and his son to carry out the duties of the priesthood, but any unauthorized person who goes too near the sanctuary must be put to death. Again, holiness is God's things that are set apart for the service of God as God has directed. And there's a penalty for not following those distinctions. And we don't put people to death anymore for not professing the right kind of faith in our country, because we have a country where we profess religious freedom. But there are still many places in the world where if you don't believe the right way or observe those beliefs the right way, you are put to death. I don't know if this is something God has always wanted, or if this is where the people working through God's directions feel that this is what's necessary. I know that eventually Jesus will come and say, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." And so as Christians, this kind of harsh punishment for just, going to the temple the wrong way, it doesn't really resonate with us. But I do think it's important for us to realize the far chasm between sinful human beings and God. And the reason why there's that harsh penalty of death is because Jesus hadn't paid it yet, but Jesus will. So, moving on forward, that's going to be a while until Jesus comes. Verse 11, and the Lord said to Moses, "Look, I have chosen the Levites from among the Israelites to serve as substitutes for all the firstborn sons of the people of Israel. The Levites belong to me, for all the firstborn males are mine." Remember, God has asked the Israelites to dedicate every firstborn male to God. Well, now God is saying that's true for your lambs and your sheep and your bulls, but for your children, instead of giving your firstborn son into the service of the temple, the Levites will give all their children for you, and you won't have to do that. And the Lord said to Moses, "The Levites belong to me," verse 13, "for all the firstborn males are mine. On the day I struck down all the firstborn sons of the Egyptians, I set apart for myself all the firstborn in Israel, both of people and of animals. They are mine. I am the Lord." So now we have the registration of the Levites because they're not fighting men. They're something completely different. And so they're counted here separately. The Lord spoke again to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai. He said, "Record the names of the members of the tribe of Levi by their families and clans. List every male who is 1 month old or older." So the other tribes are counted by year 20 or older because that's when you were fit to go to war. For Levites, it's 1 month. Again, childhood mortality being what it was, you were, if you survived your first month, you were far more likely to make it to adulthood. And so that's part of the practicality of counting the infants that are 1 month old or older. But there's also another reason why they wouldn't be counting younger than that. Remember, women were unclean for a period of weeks after giving birth, and because they were nursing their children, they wouldn't have brought the children out to the temple to be presented yet. And so that's the other reason for the 1 month, is so that presumably the woman is now able to bring her child out to be presented as a male. So Moses listed them just as the Lord had commanded. Levi had 3 sons whose names were Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. And don't worry, there won't be a test of who's named what. The clans descended from Gershon were named after 2 of his descendants, Libni and Shammai. The clans descended from Kohath were named after 4 of his descendants, Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel. And the clans descended from Merari were named after 2 of his descendants, Mali and Mushi. These were the Levite clans listed according to their family groups. The descendants of Gershon were composed of clans descended from Libni and Shammai, and there were 7,500 males 1 month or older among the Gershonite clans. They were assigned to the area west of the tabernacle for their camp. The leader of the Gershonite clans was Elisaph, son of Lael. These 2 clans were responsible to care for the tabernacle, including the sacred tent with its layers and coverings, the curtain at its entrance, the curtains of the courtyard that surrounded the tabernacle and altar, and the curtain at the courtyard, the entrance, the ropes, and all the equipment related to their use. And you might be thinking, this is an awful lot of pedantic detail. But again, this is setting these children, these men, up to have a trade. Not only are you to work in the tabernacle, but specifically you guys are in charge of maintaining the tapestry, the curtains, the actual fabric for the tent. And so all of these would be trained in tent making and fabric repair. The descendants of Kohath were composed of the clans descended from Amram, Ishar, Hebron, and Isiel, and there were 8,600 males 1 month old or older among these Kohathite clans. Now, some Greek manuscripts had a different number of 8,300. I can't explain that difference except for to say years of transcription and translation can introduce differences. That doesn't mean that the actual account is not true. It just might not be exactly precise in history. But we know there's 8,000 or more males associated with this clan, and they were responsible for caring for the sanctuary. And they were assigned the area south of the tabernacle for their camp. The leader of the Kohathite clans was Elisaphan, son of Uzziel. These 4 clans were responsible for the care of the ark, the table, the lampstand, the altars, and the various articles used in the sanctuary, the inner curtain, and all the equipment related to their use. So this tribe is the holy hardware people. They probably have training in metallurgy or will gain it because all of these items are cast in bronze and gold. And like our altar guild, they need to know how to care for these items without damaging them. And that is what they will do. Eleazar, verse 32, son of Aaron the priest, was the chief administrator over all the Levites with the special responsibility for the oversight of the sanctuary. So this was the guy who would have made the acolyte schedule and would have scheduled the various altar guild members to do their role. Verse 33, the descendants of Merari were composed of the clans descended from Mali and Mushi, and there were 6,200 males 1 month old or older among these Merarite clans. They were assigned the area north of the tabernacle for their camp. The leader of the Meronite clans was Zuriel, son of Abihail, and these 2 clans were responsible for the care of the frames supporting the tabernacle, the crossbars, the pillars, the bases, and all the equipment related to their use. They were also responsible for the posts of the courtyard and all their bases, pegs, and ropes. So again, this is a good thing that we're hearing about. God is giving each tribe a particular area to oversee. It's a lot easier when you're undertaking a massive production of moving a 40-foot tent to have a plan for each team. So this is the team that puts out the poles and the framework that the other team puts the fabric on. And so they would have needed to know how to make the poles, a little bit of metallurgy because most of these poles and bases are covered in gold or bronze. And, you know, they needed to be strong because they maintained the ropes and all of those things. So the area in front of the tabernacle in the east towards the sunrise was reserved for the tents of Moses and Aaron and his sons, who had the final responsibility for the sanctuary on behalf of the people of Israel. Anyone other than a priest or a Levite who went too near the sanctuary was to be put to death. Again, another really heavy verse that has a lot of meaning in it. Moses and Aaron and their descendants had the final responsibility over the sanctuary on behalf of the people of Israel. This is not unlike being a rector in the Episcopal Church. While it takes a whole bunch of ministries, altar guild, DOK, LEMs, LEVs, people to serve, people to clean the kitchen, people to read the scriptures, people to acolyte and carry the torches and the cross and all of these things, it takes so many people. And thank God I have a lot of help with some specific people who schedule those people and follow up with them and make sure that most of that keeps running. But ultimately, the responsibility lies to me that ensures that we continue to have services in our sanctuary that honor and love and serve the Lord. And it's not one I take lightly. And COVID has meant that we're doing it in crazy ways on the best that we can to keep fulfilling the role that God has placed. So now we have verse 39. When Moses and Aaron counted the Levite clans at the Lord's command, the total number was 22,000 males 1 month or older. So the tribe of Levi is a much smaller tribe than all of the others combined. And think about it, they were counting adults 20 years and older, and they're counting for the Levites 1 month old and older. It's a much smaller tribe, but with a much different task. And also, the Levites were not people who had grasslands and pasture and large families that supported and sustained them. Their work was the temple, and they did it faithfully. So now we're going to get into a passage about redeeming the firstborn sons. Verse 40. When the Lord said to Moses, now count all the firstborn sons in Israel who are 1 month old or older, and make a list of their names. The Levites must be reserved for me as substitutes for the firstborn sons of Israel. I am the Lord. And the Levites' livestock must be reserved for me as substitutes for the firstborn livestock of the whole nation of Israel. So Moses counted the firstborn sons of the people of Israel just as the Lord had commanded. The number of firstborn sons who were 1 month old or older was 22,273. Then the Lord said to Moses, take the Levites as substitutes for the firstborn sons of the people of Israel, and take the livestock of the Levites as substitutes for the firstborn livestock of the people of Israel. The Levites belong to me. I am the Lord. There are 273 more firstborn sons of Israel than there are Levites. To redeem these extra firstborn sons, collect 5 pieces of silver for each of them, each weighing the same as the sanctuary shekel, which equals 20 gerahs. Give the silver to Aaron and his sons as the redemption price for the extra firstborn sons. We don't have a lot of detail here, and I wish we had more, because imagine there's 273 more firstborn sons. Did they go in order? So did they say, all right, we're going to go from oldest to youngest? And so when they got to the youngest, these new babies, they told those parents, all right, pay up. Or did they divide the cost of the extra 273 children among the whole people? Or the people who could pay more paid? We don't know. That detail wasn't seen as important to be recorded. And that's one of the things that frustrates a lot of people when they read the Bible, is that they would like to know more than it tells. That doesn't mean that the story is not true, and it doesn't mean that it is not sufficient. As Episcopalians, we say that in this collect that the scriptures contain all things necessary for salvation. I'm going to admit here that knowing how they divided the 273 extra cost is not at all necessary for salvation. It's a curiosity. It's something I wish I knew, and I'm a history major, so I get a little wrapped up in history more so than others. But it's not going to determine whether we make it into the kingdom to come. And so I need that occasional reminder as I go through the Bible that the scriptures contain all things necessary for salvation, but they don't contain all things. And that's okay. Imagine how heavy and large our Bibles would be if they contained everything. I don't think we could. So, verse 49, collected the silver for the redeeming firstborn sons of Israel, who exceeded the number of Levites. He collected 1,365 pieces of silver on behalf of the firstborn sons of Israel, each piece weighing the same as the sanctuary shekel. And Moses gave the silver for the redemption to Aaron and his sons, just as the Lord commanded. All right, it is 11:40. I think we can go a little bit further today before we break for questions, but we're going to get into the Kohathite clan. This is slightly different, and so they have different duties. Then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, record the name of the members of the clans and families of the Kohathite division of the tribe of Levi. List all the men between the ages of 30 and 50 who are eligible to serve in the tabernacle. So before we had the Levites who were 1 month or older, here we have a special portion of the Levites, the Kohathites, that are between ages of 30 and 50. Now, as Episcopalians, we know that we're aging. Generally, our congregations are getting older, and I'm really grateful that all of you who are above the age of 50 don't just say, well, that's it, I'm retired, somebody new take my place. There's a reason why there's this age restriction for the Levites serving in the tabernacle here, and that is because they are engaged in animal sacrifices to God, and it is hard, hot, messy, hard, did I mention, work. And so they want men who are in their prime of life and maturity. So the duties of the Kohathites in the tabernacle will relate to the most sacred objects. When the camp moves, Aaron and his sons must enter the tabernacle to take down the inner curtain and cover the Ark of the Covenant with it. Then they must cover the inner curtain with the fine goatskin leather and spread over that a single piece of blue cloth. Finally, they must put the carrying poles of the ark in place. Next, they must spread a blue cloth over the table where the bread of presence is displayed. And on the cloth, they will place the bowls, ladles, jars, pitchers, and special bread. They must spread a scarlet cloth over all of this, and finally a covering of fine goatskin leather on top of the scarlet cloth. Then they must insert the carrying poles into the table. Next, they must cover the lampstand with a special blue cloth, along with its lamps, lamp snuffers, trays, and special jars of olive oil. Then they must cover the lampstand and its accessories with fine goatskin leather and place the bundle on a carrying frame. Next, they must place a blue cloth over the gold incense altar and cover this cloth with fine goatskin leather. Then they must attach the carrying poles to the altar. They must take all the remaining furnishings of the sanctuary and wrap them in a blue cloth, cover them with fine goatskin leather, and place them on the carrying frame. So if you've ever wondered why altar guilds traditionally use blue colorings for what we call our working linen, the things that cover up the holy areas when we're not using them, this is where it comes from. When we're moving things or putting them away for storage for a while, they get a covering of blue, and it comes from the tradition outlined here. Verse 13, next they must remove the ashes from the altar for sacrifices and cover the altar with a purple cloth. All the altar utensils, the fire pans, meat forks, shovels, basins, and all the containers must be placed on the cloth, and a covering of fine goatskin leather must be spread over them. Finally, they must put the carrying poles in place. The camp will be ready to move when Aaron and his sons have finished covering the sanctuary and all the sacred articles. The Kohathites will come and carry these things to the next destination, but they must not touch the sacred objects or they will die. These are not the priests who are eligible to do the worship with the sacred items. These are the moving men. They schlep and they carry and they set up and they tear down, but they only do it once it's all been covered over specially. So these are the things from the tabernacle that the Kohathites must carry. Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, will be responsible for the oil of the lampstand, the fragrant incense, the daily grain offerings, and the anointing oil. In fact, Eleazar will be responsible for the entire tabernacle and everything in it, including the sanctuary and its furnishings. Then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, do not let the Kohathite clans be destroyed from among the Levites. This is what you must do, so they will live and not die when they approach the most sacred objects. Aaron and his sons must always go in with them and assign a specific duty or load to each person. The Kohathites must never enter the sanctuary to look at the sacred objects for even a moment, or they will die. All right. So yes, death penalty for looking at the sacred objects seems a little extreme to us. But again, what God is creating and teaching the Israelites to be is a community completely set apart in obedience to God in a way that the nations surrounding them are not. And so some of these rules and distinctions are to show how very different and set apart the God of the Israelites is. And, God is being gracious and merciful and very clearly and repeatedly saying, here's how you do things to honor me. And that is good news. If we read the Bible and if we follow the ways that Jesus models how to follow God, we will not dishonor the sacred things that we encounter in this life. So we're going to stop there and we will pick up with verse 21 next week. And I will end the recording so you guys can ask some questions. Hold on. Recording stop.